Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first Tableau user group meeting of the year. Hope you're all having a great start to the new year so far. My name is James, and I'm one of the leaders of the Vancouver and Victoria Tableau user group, known as TUG. In the Vancouver TUG, we have Dimitri, Donabelle, Daria, and myself as TUG leaders. For those of you that are attending for the first time, the idea of these TUGs is to provide an opportunity for Tableau users to connect and network. We always have guest speakers at our meetups. They often talk about their Tableau journey at work, best practices for dashboarding, or share some really cool stuff they have done with Tableau. I did one about a year ago where I talked about the Tableau journey at Aritzia. We're always looking for speakers, so if you would like to participate, let us know. We have two speakers this afternoon. First up, we have Jonathan Drummey. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he's a Tableau Zen Master. The Zen Master program recognizes individuals with exceptional contributions to the Tableau community. Jonathan is a data visualization expert at PATH. PATH is a global NGO, and their mission is to accelerate health equality or solve the world's most pressing health challenges. Jonathan will talk about how he combines personal and professional interests with a deeper dive into a use case at PATH. He is from Maine, which is 3 hours ahead of us in Vancouver, and we're extremely delighted that he's taking his time this evening to present. Our second speaker will be Honto Ming. Honto is a product manager at Tableau based in Vancouver. His work revolves around augmented analytics. Augmented analytics gives Tableau users new ways to see and understand data. Personally, I have used Ask Data and seen demos of Explain Data, and they're pretty neat features. Tableau version 2020.4 was released last month. Hanto will talk about some of the latest features in this release, and he's also going to give us a sneak peek into what's in store for augmented analytics in 2021. Just some housekeeping stuff. We have a Q&A window on the right, so please feel free to write down your questions for speakers and admins. And enough of me talking. Here's Jonathan.
All right, thank you, James, and welcome everybody to the Vancouver TUG. So I'm excited to be with you today, and I'm just taking a moment to land because it's been a little bit of a crazy day and a crazy time. And I just want to say, appreciate you all who are taking time out of your day with the pandemic going on and all of the challenges that we have in our home lives, in our family, in our work lives, and everything to be here. So hopefully this will be useful to you. So I'm going to talk, let me start sharing my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Great, getting a thumbs up. So I'm a data visualization specialist at PATH, like James mentioned, and I'm going to talk about a few things. One is my Tableau journey and some lessons learned along the way, some secrets of the Tableau Zen Masters, and how I get to put that to use at PATH in my work. And this picture on the right is a bunch of people from the Tableau community back in 2018 at the Tableau conference. So this is a whole bunch of people I miss right now because I haven't seen them in a while. So when I started using Tableau, it was actually 10 years ago this year. So at this point, almost a fifth of my life, I've been using Tableau, which is a crazy thing to think about. Then I was working for our local healthcare system, and we had Excel and Tableau and a little data sources and things like that. And I built out a bunch of different views for looking at different things, and all very early on in my own data visualization journey as far as what I could do and what kinds of things I was trying to do with Tableau. And I read Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, and I was like, okay, I want to get good at this tool called Tableau. And in that, I wanted to work with more data, so I got really involved on the Tableau community forums and did all sorts of stuff there, answering lots of questions for people as a way for me to help other people use this tool that I loved but also as a way for me to try out different things and learn different things about Tableau. And this is one of the things I put out along the way in my learning. You might have seen this dashboard. It is my most popular view on Tableau Public, and it was my attempt back in 2012 to replicate Excel within Tableau. And so pulling together techniques I learned from other people, inventing a few myself, and there's a lot of us who want to make Tableau work like Excel, which is why it's really popular. Hopefully I can talk you out of that a little bit nowadays. And I don't really build views this way anymore necessarily. But part of what that led to was me getting this rock in the mail one day that said, Jonathan, you are a Tableau Zen Master. And at this time, this was the start of the Tableau Zen Master program. So I didn't know what a Tableau Zen Master was. So I called Dustin Smith at Tableau and found out it was this new program. And then went to my first Tableau conference and got to fly a remote controlled shark there, which is one of my personal highlights of the conference. But then I also got to meet for the first time for real these other guys who were in that first cohort of Tableau Zen Masters. So Andy Kriebel, Ryan Robitaille, Joe Mako, there's me, Chuck Hooper. And when we started out, we were these people who we didn't necessarily know each other in person, but we all loved each other's work. So for example, Ryan Robitaille had made this visualization of the guitar tabs for the band Metallica that went totally viral. And it was something that none of us had really seen before. Or Chuck had done all this work. He helped launch Tableau Professional Services in the first place. So had all this experience and has been doing database stuff since before I was born. Yes, James, that is that visualization, the crosstab of many colors. Thank you. And then at the conference, Malcolm Gladwell was speaking, and I actually got to meet him and tell him how his book had helped inspire me. So it was this awesome launch into this amazing community of people. And so this start of this Tableau Zen Master program, honoring these people who had just contributed huge amounts to the Tableau community. Switching over to Safari now, when we look at the Tableau Zen Masters, there's just dozens and dozens and dozens of current and former Zen Masters. And then Tableau also created the Tableau Ambassador Program, which is expanded to include people who are evangelizing and talking about Tableau across the community forums and social media and user groups and Tableau Public, student ambassadors now, and then people who are really hardcore into development, the data dev ambassadors. So with that, there's now over 76 current and former Tableau Zen Masters. There's over 150 Tableau ambassadors. It's just huge the way the community has grown. And in my time working with Tableau, I've thought about like, okay, what is this that helps people sort of get to this level within the community? Because being a Tableau Zen Master it's something Tableau does, so it's kind of an honor society, but it's also something people aspire to. So I did a presentation on getting good at Tableau, and I can share this presentation with everybody. I did another one about going into more detail about being a Tableau Zen Master. In this past year, Bridget Cogley, Andy Cockreeve, and I recorded a video talking about the application process in more detail. So there's some resources that we can share out for more details on that. But just to kind of synthesize that together right now, there's this place of sharing what we know or what we're learning about Tableau. That's where some of the most amazing blog posts and visualizations and things like that come out of, or people are in that learning process. And we're finding ways to share that, as I talked about. And then there's a place of working well with other people in the Tableau community And finally, there's a chunk of this that's about privilege, that we have as Tableau users some ability to try out different things and share them. And not everybody does that because of work constraints or family constraints or so on. So that's kind of the core of these recognition programs is doing that. So to talk about me for a second. So the thing for me was kind of this question around how does my data turn into the marks and numbers that we see on the screen, and how do I get them to be exactly the number that I want, or exactly that bit of Excel conditional formatting I want, or something like that. And then I was blogging, active in the community forums, participating in user groups like this. So sharing what I know out there with the world. And then in this, in the community, we're constantly building on top of others. So we're remixing different people's ideas from Tableau Public. All of the user group leaders talk with one another about what are ways to help our user groups get better. And being in this place of, wow, look at what you're doing. Can I add to that? Is there a way I can share more to the community? And then I was lucky enough to have a supportive family and work environment. And I also have a background as a technical writer, which let me write really long blog posts and forum responses and things like that, and have some starting out skills there. And this is something I think about a lot, because I'll meet people who work for different organizations who are doing what I think of as like, they've got mastery of Tableau or the tooling around Tableau or doing different things. And so they're people who are Tableau Zen masters, but for various reasons, we can't hear about what they do. So for example, I've got several friends at Apple who are doing amazing stuff at Apple. They have the largest Tableau server deployment in the world, and Apple's very secretive about what they do, and they can't talk about it. So whenever I get a chance to, like right now, I talk them up because they're just doing amazing work. And there's people like that all over the place. And I bet some of you on this call are part of them. So in doing this kind of thing, it's a matter of, can we find ways to share and do what we do, whether that's getting involved in user groups, for example, maybe we're sharing within our organization and so on. So for me, going in my own journey of working in our local healthcare system, I wanted to spend more time working with Tableau and less time in writing SQL and doing data wrangling. And so I joined Datablick, which is a small consultancy formed of several other Tableau Zen masters. And I got to have this really awesome business card, which was great, of what I did with lots of Tableau pills on it. And I kept on going with my own explorations and studies of Tableau. So this is one of my Datablick blog posts going into how do you get the conditional highlighting that you want with a discrete pill instead of a continuous pill. And as part of that, I'd also gotten involved in the Visualize No Malaria project. And this was something that the Tableau founders did with some of their money when Tableau went public, is they launched the Tableau Foundation. So they were giving away money and software to support improving data use in different areas. And the Tableau Foundation partnered up with PATH and the Ministry of Health in Zambia to work on malaria elimination in Zambia, which is a nation in sub-Saharan Africa. And in terms of malaria, worldwide, malaria kills about 400 to 500,000 people per year. It is the leading cause of death by another species besides human beings and our usual diseases and things. So it's a huge impact on life in other countries. And in Zambia, they've done amazing work reducing their malaria rates, and we've been supporting that with visualizations. And in doing that work, that led me to this kind of deeper question around who am I helping with the work that I do? And are those people the people that I want to be helping? So as an independent consultant, we were working with different organizations and like the Fortune 500 and so on, and companies that have lots of money and are using Tableau to make lots of more money and everything. And I wanted to do something a little different and help people more directly. And that's a question for all of us that we can ask in what we want to do. And in doing Tableau, it's pretty amazing. Like I did a web search today on Indeed.com or Indeed.ca in BC, and there's like 150 odd Tableau jobs that are out there. A couple are for a bar named Tableau, so I don't think they're data visualization, but there's a lot of opportunities out there for us to find something that's not only paying the bills, but also giving us some meaningful work. And for me, volunteering turned out to be this amazing entry into that because Path ultimately recruited me to work with them. So Path is based in Seattle, but about 60% of our staff work around the world outside of the United States. And we try to be an engine of innovation. So Path is about the same size as groups like Doctors Without Borders, as far as public health, non-governmental organizations. But we don't hear so much about Path because we tend to work a little bit more in the background and less in the kind of crisis response work that Doctors Without Borders does. So we work on developing vaccines, developing new devices, for use in healthcare and assorted areas of strengthening health systems. And that's some of where, and data visualization touches all of those. So we've got about 1,500 people working in 70 different countries. So I'm actually working remotely here based in Maine, in the northeast corner of the United States. And in the pre-COVID days, I would travel several times a year to other parts of the world to do assorted training and consulting and capacity building with other Path staff as well as partners in ministries of health. So in that, we do a whole variety of different things. I'm going to share some different dashboards that we've built or different views. So this is one we actually built for the as a demo in the Tableau conference to show off density marks on maps. But it's also highlighting the work we've done in the Visualize No Malaria project, where in the area where we started the project in Southern Province, we had an 80% decline in malaria cases, whereas the rest of Zambia, which didn't have all the interventions we were working with, only declined 15% in that time. Here's a visualization that I built that I ended up blogging about that was making use of parameter actions so that we could do some complex selection to identify each of these circles here are community health workers, and we can pick community health workers on the map. Sets of them, so that way we can use up the remaining bottles of indoor residual spray for malaria and do that. We've done dashboards for HIV, for example, so testing, positive, and so on, looking across different disaggregations. We use one of our primary data preparation tools is Alteryx. So building big old Alteryx workflows. This one is for processing malaria data from the Odisha district state in India. And then getting into bigger data sets. This is 1.5 billion data points of satellite vegetation data, which is totally free. You can download it from the NASA website. And then it does take a little bit of time to process, but then you can make some really fun maps in Tableau with it. And our world, like the rest of the world, has been upended by COVID. So in a lot of our projects, they either halted or new projects started, or the projects went in different directions. And one of the things for us is doing more public visualization. So we're not just working with Ministry of Health data, but other global data. So this is a public visualization hosted on our Tableau server, looking at all the diagnostic products for COVID-19 that are in the pipeline. For that, with a sort of an exploratory visualization, looking at that. So different manufacturers will look at this, also different donors. And for us, this also highlights the challenge that we're in when we look at where the diagnostics are being created. We've got 2 diagnostics in South Africa, 2 in Egypt, 1 in Nigeria, 1 more in the northwest of Africa, and that's it for the whole continent, compared to hundreds in the United States and so on. So this also speaks to the availability of diagnostics and the work that we have to do. Another public visualization that we did for COVID is a catalog of training resources for healthcare workers. So this is using a Tableau visualization that's basically on a database of links in a way. So people can click and interact with this and then go out and link to websites to watch things and search on it on different keywords and filter criteria. And then this is another visualization that we built to highlight the need for medical oxygen for COVID-19 cases. So in Canada and the United States, every hospital has some number of beds. There's an oxygen plant that's providing lines directly to those beds so people can get medical oxygen for COVID. And as we move into low-income countries, so LMICs is low and middle and income countries per World Bank classifications, there's a lot less support, and they need a lot of oxygen for that. So, and when the net result of this is when people don't have medical oxygen, there's higher death rates. So we've been incredibly lucky in a way in the vast majority of the low-income world that COVID rates has been lower. But we can't trust that that can continue. So this is a dashboard we're using to help raise awareness and do advocacy. And then one of the questions in our work is we're lucky enough to have tools like Tableau and Alteryx available to us. And not all nonprofits or ministries of health have that available to them. So for us, having a mission about improving public health, we have this question of, can we help others to do that? And one of the things we've worked out with Tableau and Alteryx as organizations is we're now offering what we call the Health Insight Platform. So it's hosted Tableau server and Alteryx server, as well as additional cores for machine learning. We also have support from Microsoft for this. So it's actually hosted on Microsoft Azure. And this is something, if you have a nonprofit or a non-governmental organization, public health, or you know somebody who's working for them and you're looking to do more, please talk with us. So we have a high availability environment set up that we're excited to use. So that's my tiny little bit of a plug. So we're doing all this amazing work on our projects and everything, but how are we doing really? This is going back into kind of a lesson learned a bit this. Are we really dog fooding our own tools and practicing what we preach? And what we noticed a couple of years ago was we weren't getting as much uptake of Tableau as we'd expected or hoped for. And in looking at it, we've got 200 odd projects active at any time across the organization. Everybody's really busy doing their thing in the ways that they're used to doing it. And a lot of people in public health didn't have advanced tools like Tableau, so they didn't know what's possible out there in working with visualization or working with data. So we started looking at, and when I say we, this is our chief data officer, myself, and some other colleagues at Path. And we're like, okay, well, what's data? Where can we touch everybody? And this led to look at us, what are we doing internally with our visualizations? So this was a visualization built a few years ago, looking at our product portfolio, and I've blurred out a bunch of the numbers on here, but kind of where are our awards coming from and so on, our award amounts. So we win new awards every year. So we usually see it tailing off over time. So this gets filled in by new awards. This is kind of a basic exploratory visualization that wasn't getting a lot of use. And where this evolved to is a visualization that's actually simpler. It's 5 bars and a whole lot of a text table, but it's not just looking at our award data, it's also tying in what are our budget targets, what do we have for funding? So that's this top blue line. Then what do we have for funding in hand? What is that gap here? What's our outstanding opportunity? So this is data coming from Salesforce. And then how much of a gap do we have left? And then we're looking at our lists of opportunities down here, and there's assorted sorting and filtering options and stuff like that with this. And what this really helps drive is people to pay attention to that pipeline of new grants and awards for us. And what it ultimately led to is that our programs, so different operating departments that implemented this all reached or exceeded their targets for the year by 10% or more. And those that didn't use this dashboard, it was kind of a variation and mishmash. So one of these places where building a view that is more actionable and ties data together in a way people really need to makes for change. And now this view is rolled out to the rest of the organization. And then another place for us is looking at our labor data, because we're a large organization, we're juggling different projects, trying to make sure everybody's kept busy or people aren't too busy. So here we're looking at different staff members. I've highlighted me. So this is from 2019. And then I was over budgeted, having a long green bar compared to the short bar. And then being able to drill into details of what different projects I'm working on and how much time and so on. And so with this detail out here, my team was able to hire another person because we were able to really document how much we had for additional budgeted time that we weren't able to use because we can only work so many hours a day. And so with that, this is another dashboard that's being rolled out to the rest of the organization. So now we have that enterprise adoption and training that we'd really wished for. We've got certified data sources, and our kind of bleeding edge on this is getting into more push options with using subscriptions and viz alerts. So that's what Path's up to. What are Tableau Zen Masters up to? How do we end up working after we become Tableau Zen Masters? And this is a picture of Jackie Bradley Jr., who's a player on the Red Sox. He's a free agent now. And one of the things that happens when baseball players reach the big leagues is that it's a whole new environment, and they're often challenged when they first get there. And the advice to Major League Baseball players when they reach the big leagues is, okay, whatever you did got you to this level of play, so keep on doing it. So don't change things up right away. And it's the same thing for Tableau Zen Masters. So when people become Tableau Zen Masters and get that rock, the idea is, hey, you've been writing blogs, you've been really active in growing user groups and supporting the community, keep on doing that. So whatever you're doing there, just keep it up. And so that's kind of my biggest secret about the Tableau Zen Masters is we're really not any different. And there's tons of amazing people, like I said earlier, who are doing work that is at this really high level, but we just don't get to hear about it so much. So I see it as more, we're in some ways, we're the lucky ones. So for me, with kind of what I do, so I get to think about how can we better serve audiences and stakeholders who are less privileged. And so with that, I think of the people that I'm trying to support in public health who like, this is their map. They're doing amazing stuff with paper maps. Can we give them something better? With that, I also think of all of those of us who have lots of Excel users to support, which I'm certainly one of them because Excel is just incredibly commonly used. And how can I help them do more with their data? So one of the things with Tableau Zen Masters and Ambassadors is we do have some extra reach into Tableau. So Tableau will lean on us and ask us questions about new features. And then we can also use that there. So for me, this is a piece I've been heavily working on in the last few years is doing things like writing 26 pages of thoughts on mental models and data preparation that helped go into the relationships feature. And then I also in the Tableau prep, when that was early on, back when it was called Maestro, gave Tableau a lot of feedback about joins and things like that, about how to make this tool work better for more people. And then I get to think about, okay, when Tableau actually delivers these features or using existing features, how can I use them in newer, different ways to support what we do? And with that, I'm going to switch over to doing a demo. So we have lots and lots of issues with sparse data. Can I just check in? How much time do I have left?
We have maybe another 40 minutes or so.
4 minutes? Okay,
yeah.
Great. Yep. So, and as I'm working through this piece, please ask questions if you're wondering about the technical bits of what's going on here, because I know a lot of organizations aren't necessarily on 2020.2.3 or .4 yet. So this will hopefully convince you that you can do some really cool stuff. So I'm going to go through 3 different examples on this. So using relationships, which were introduced in 2020.2, relationship calculations, and ultimately map layers. So with relationships, so Tableau built this new way of connecting data sources. And the goal was to support more complex data models, support more analytics use cases out of the same data source. And Tableau didn't want to just build the same kinds of data modeling features that we can see in tools like Click and Power BI and so on. They wanted to do it in a Tableau way and make it easier to use as it works. And Tableau already had all this experience with joins of data, joining different data sources and so on, and also having built out the data blend capability. And data blending being this feature that lets us effectively do a sort of post-aggregate join inside a view and change that from worksheet to worksheet. And then joins give us all this power because they're joining the data at that row level. So could we get the best of both worlds within that? And a whole chunk of this, there's performance gains from it, but also be able to relate data at different grains. So I'm going to show a demo of this. So this is a demo data set that I've made. So this is some sort of measure. Let me just show the data here before the joins or anything. So we have like country, facility, health zone, month, and then there's positive. So this could be positive malaria cases, positive HIV cases, tuberculosis, and so on. So we regularly see data like this where we're aggregated to a monthly level for each facility. And in this data, we have a population figure that's replicated to every row. And so if I want to look at my, so this population figure actually lives at the facility level. I'll just move over here. It's at the facility level. I'll scroll down a little further until I get to two different facilities. So this facility has 4120 for a population. This facility is 5541. So there's all this replication in the data. And there's also situations where maybe we've joined in population from another source. So this population source has that population one row per facility. So either way, when I'm using the population that's in the data or the facility population, when I'm aggregating to the facility level, I've got these numbers are getting really huge. It's a big number. And just to show this, just kind of show that replication. Here I've added month in the data. So I only have one record for each row. There's that number I'm expecting to see. But if I take a month off, then this is aggregated and gets huge and it's the wrong number. So we end up having to build a level of detail expression. And for us, in our work, doing incidence rates is one of the first calculations people have to do with the data. And so imagine going into a Tableau training and on day one, you're having to teach people level of detail expressions and how to work with those. It's just, it's doable. We can say, hey, Tableau, this measure, this facility population lives at the facility level, and then we can get the right number. And then we can create that incidence per 1,000 and sum it up and everything works right. And we're all happy about that. So this is one of the things with Tableau with relationships. They're like, why should we make people have to do that all the time? Like we can know that the facility population lives at the grain of facility because that's in the data. So with relationships, we now have the noodle. So instead of a straight line join connector, we get this orange noodle kind of shape. I think of it more like spaghetti that is connecting the data. And we're still telling Tableau how we're relating one table to another. So my data is at the facility level. My population measure relates on the facility. There is a change in our data grid. Instead of showing the join results, if I switch over to my join version of the data, this is showing all of the join results in our data grid. I'm just seeing one table at a time. So here's my population table, and here's my data table. And the reason why Tableau is doing this is it's deferring the joins until runtime. So these two tables are called logical tables. And if I wanted to, I can take my data and add other joins to this, for example, and get the regular row level join kind of logic. So Tableau hasn't taken anything away. It's just removed, it's just added this new layer of interactivity on top of joins. And so with relationships, I'm just going to start out a new worksheet to demo this. So here's my facility. Here's that facility population from my original data, showing all of that row level replication. Here's my facility population from my population table, and there's no replication here. So what Tableau has done is it's queried my data table at the level of facility, aggregating my facility population. And then it's done a separate query of my population table at the level of facility in this case, but there's only one row for each facility population, and then it is joining those together at runtime. And then we get the right results, and then the incidence per 1,000 calculation is a much more natural sum of positive divided by sum of my population times 1,000, and it just works. So that's the relationships feature introduced in 2020.2 in a nutshell. And so I don't have to teach level of detail expressions anymore on day one of Tableau training. And it works so naturally. When we went to Tableau 2020.2 and started using it several months ago, for the vast majority of our users, they didn't really notice any difference. They were creating relationships and it was just working for them. So it's a feature that I really applaud Tableau for doing a really good job on it. So that's kind of basic relationships. Whoops, my slide order got mixed up here. So we're going to talk about relationship calculations now. So relationship calculations are like join calculations, but for relationships. So we can use them to correct issues in the data and so on. But there's this more advanced use case that we can do is do a kind of cross join or Cartesian join without actually causing the replication that we would see in that. And we've got all sorts of different use cases for it that I have many blog posts in the queue to talk about. And the use case I'm going to talk about here is displaying backgrounds on maps. And I'm going to use a data set I downloaded from the Canada Chronic Disease Indicators data set. So now switch over to this one. So we have this data set of what percentage of the population in each province reporting having less than a high school education. And there's lower and upper bounds in the data and so on. And so I want to map this data. And so I built out a map here using Tableau's built-in geography and everything. In the addition field on here, we've got 2 years worth of data. So this 2018 map looks awesome. And then I click on 2019 and boom, I've lost the whole northern tier of provinces in Canada. And this is an issue we see all the time in our work at Path where for whatever reason, people aren't reporting the data or our survey is in only a small part of the country and we want to make sure we're showing the rest of the country. So there's ways we can potentially get here with padding, get to a map that shows everything without padding out by padding out the data and writing more calculations and everything. But there's another way we can do it with relationships. And just to show this in the data, like the way I laid out this data, for those of you who know Canadian provinces, you might have spotted this data in the way. If I put addition on columns, for example, it makes that missing data more obvious. And so when I'm hovering over Northwest Territories here and there's no tooltip or anything, that blank means there's no data. So there's not even null, there's just no data here for that. So on my ideal map, here's my 2019. And now when I hover over the marks, we're showing no reported data. When I go to 2018, we're seeing all of our marks. So this is built out using relationships and a relationship calculation. So let's look at this data source. So in this data source, this is my original data set. This window always takes a second to populate. So our high school completion data source is all here. And then I have a list of all of my provinces that I want to see no matter what. And then instead of relating them on province, because if I'd related them on province, when I have no provinces, nothing would be showing up necessarily. Or if I have some filtering in play that is removing data, it would go away. I'm doing my relationship join or sort of join on 1 equals 1. So this is a calculated field that's just returning 1, and I have a calculated field that's returning 1. And so for those of you who are used to working with regular Cartesian joins, if I did a join like this, I'd have a row for every province, for every row in my completion data. So I'd have replication of the data. Whereas with relationships, I can work with these two tables effectively independently. This was part of the goal of relationships, was to let us handle more use cases with fewer data sets. So here, if I want to look at my provinces, oops, I need, that's right, I need my country field. So here's my province for my province list. So there's all my provinces on there, and I can build a map with that. From my other data, here's all my provinces, and I can build a map with that. So these are two kind of independent views. So in this case, I did a dual axis map, and I'll turn off the dual axis here. So here's my latitude generated field that's from my province list, and it's showing every single territory, and I added a tooltip saying no reported data. And then on this marks card, I have my country and province from my actual data that is getting that addition filter applied to it. And there's no, in our relationship, we just set that relationship on 1 equals 1. So there's nothing connecting those necessarily for this addition filter changing one to the other, whereas we're going from 2018 to 2019. So this view ends up losing marks, but this map does not. And so then I can put them on a dual axis and have the rest of those provinces are technically under this mark. We can see we've got 23 marks drawn in the view here, because we have all of our provinces minus those 3. If I go to 2018, then we're seeing 26 marks being drawn here. So being able to show an entire map, to have tooltips that are meaningful to the user, and build it relatively easily with relationships is kind of a game changer for us. And it was one of those things that we would figure out ways to do this in 2020.2, but then 2020.3 made it so much easier with relationship calculations. So we can build that on the fly. So that's using relationship calculations, and this is just using a dual axis to display this kind of thing. Then next, we're going to go into map layers. And I know there's going to be more of a map layers demo later, so I'm not going to talk too much of it. And the thing that map layers gives us is we get more than 2 axes to work with finally on a map. So I've only wanted this for a while. And we can choose what layers are visible or not visible, and interactivity. So are they selectable or not? And there's all sorts of use cases that we can use for map. Whoops, so there's many use cases. That was an accidental copy. But it makes displaying map layers or using more different layers better. And I'm going to show an example of this for us using Zambia province borders. So this one actually came out of an office hours that I had done. So just to demo layers here and to show my data source. So for Zambia, the built-in district shapes that are Tableau has aren't the most accurate ones. So we have our own shape files that we use for it. So I have a data of all my different facilities. That's my sheet 1 table here. And then I've joined in my district shape file a couple of different times. Once to use as backgrounds, like we just talked about, of setting up these backgrounds for no data. Another layer to use with my data and measures, so I can color shapes by different things and everything. And then I have this province outline that I will demo in a little bit. So with layers, I'm just going to start a view. And I have my districts. And I'll just drop district on color here so we can see all of our districts. I'm missing some districts out here in my data. And maybe instead of coloring these by district, I want to color this by how many facilities are in each district, for example. So I have that. And then maybe I want to add another measure which shows like, okay, have they reported their data or not? So I want to do a dual axis with my field map and a shape on top. So I can say, well, let's drag out that district shape again. And when I drag it out, we get this new add a marks layer drop zone, and I can drop my district shape on it. And now I have a second marks card, which is on top of my other marks card. And I can click and rearrange these and turn them. I can make them visible and not visible. So if you've ever used tools like Photoshop and for drawing and having different layers, this is going to be very similar to you. And I can say, let's take each district and put it on detail. So I have all my districts. And then I have this district missing latest data. Let me change my mark type to shape. And then I'm just going to put this on shape. And then there's different ways we could write calculations. I did this with the simplest way, but it requires a little more setup. So I'm going to make these marks invisible. And I happen to have an invisible polygon that I've made here. So I'm going to make my null and my false those. And let's make true an X. And now I have X's on those ones that are missing latest data, which is a whole lot of them. And then as I'm on here, there's a lot of, my tooltips are changing all over the place. So I can just take this layer and say, I want to disable selection on it. So people can still hover over the original marks and see and work with the whole districts. And then in terms of building that out, here I've done some extra stuff with colors. My district calculation is working the way I expected it. Oh, this was supposed to be minimum to be measured. There we go. That's working a little better. So we're only highlighting the things that we care about. So this is a 2-layer example. We could build this in earlier versions of Tableau using dual axes. So let's keep on. Let's keep on going with this. So one of the things that happens is this map is all 116 districts in Zambia. There are 10 provinces in Zambia, and we want to see province borders on the map. And there's province borders underneath the marks in the base layer of the map, but they're hidden by our data. So so to get province borders, we have, I'll just add a new worksheet. So I have a shape file that I've created here, and this is like 5 clicks in QGIS to build it out when you get a shape file that is the outlines. And just to kind of demonstrate how this is different, I'm going to duplicate this field. Sorry, that was not a duplicate. That is a duplicate. Give me the same old thing. And I'm going to put my district shapes on this one. So one of the ways we can tell this is just an outline is anywhere I hover over on this map. Let me just put my district on here. I'm getting a tooltip. and the selection, whereas with the outlines, this is just the border. Notice if I'm hovering in the middle of a province, I don't get a tooltip. Whereas if I go right over to the line, then it starts highlighting and I can get tooltips and so on. So we just have the outline here. So going back to this, I can add a layer with my province outlines. And so now I have this new layer of the outlines, and I can size, because this is a line, and make it thick. Maybe I'll make it a little thicker. I'm just going to change the color to be a little lighter so it jumps out. So now I can see where my provinces are and how my data relates to each other. And this is a case where I want to display this, but it's not something for interactivity right now. So I can go again and disable that selection. And now we've got this much nicer cartographic kind of layout in our visualization. So, and I'd also on this, I'd added a fourth layer for those district background shapes. So that way we can see the whole country and where we have no data. So we're now working with 4 layers on the same view, and we could keep on adding more and more layers if we wanted to. And the last bit for me in this demo is once we have these borders as their own thing, I've now created a calculated field. I've got a parameter here of my province of interest, and I've got a calculated field that is identifying that province. So let me show this selected province calculation here. So if the province is the province of interest, we're going to return true. Otherwise, we're going to return false. And then the if null takes care of a bit of an issue in the data. So we're just returning true or false. And now we're able to highlight where it is we care about on the view in a way that makes sense without obscuring the rest of the data. So this is something where historically we might have used a highlight action or something like that to do it. But when we do a highlight action or I click and select something to highlight it, then I'm graying out the rest of the data and I can't read the rest of the view as well. Whereas doing this, selecting that border of our region of interest lets us display all the detail in the data. So in our case, we're using this right now to support indoor residual spraying in Zambia. They're at the point in the season where they're figuring out what kinds of chemicals they're going to, insecticides they're going to use for spraying against malaria for next year. And so they're looking at what did we spray last year and a number of other variables. And part of the variable is what happened for rates in the past year around our area of interest and what were we doing. And so we're able to use this kind of interactivity to support that work. So doing this kind of stuff in 2020.4, and this is just the start in some ways of what's possible with map layers in 2020.4 and getting the kinds of things we want. So so another example on this is I could also, if another challenge we have is layering if I want to have the province label on top of all of my marks, I can just take province and put that on label. And oh, this one doesn't work. I need to use a different shapefile. I'd forgotten about this. This is actually lining up what the beginning of the first point on the outline is. So that part of the demo doesn't work. So that's my bad for not rehearsing that little bit in advance. So that's kind of getting in detail of some of the ways that we're taking advantage of the new features that Tableau is creating so we can do really cool stuff with the tool and get the kind of output we need with that. So with that, I talked a little bit about my Tableau journey, talked about what it's like being a Tableau Zen Master and life at Path, working in public health, and then talked about working with relationships and map layers. And I hope you're able to do some really awesome stuff with it. So with that, I do see one question where Miguel Madriz would like feedback on a Tableau public visualization. So I'm happy to look at that. So this is, and if you have other questions, pop them into the Q&A or the chat, and we'll take this last couple of minutes on this. So Canadian interprovincial migration, is that usual where they come and go? So what years this covers, and then it looks like we're only doing these 5 provinces. So I have, like, because I'm more of a data analyst at heart, one of my first questions is, well, what about the other provinces? I live right next to Nova Scotia. So where's Nova Scotia on the map, for example? Because as soon as we do geographic data, people care about where they live or what resonates with them. So I'm seeing migration flow between provinces. And so one of my questions here is, when to when? Like, is this from are we starting in 1971, going to 2019, or vice versa? Also on the tooltips here, there's no numerator of how many people is this. So how many people were we starting with in each of these? Another piece for me in looking at data, so Tableau's default is it's showing us 2 decimal places when we're doing percentages. And is it really necessary to have that level of specificity, or can we get away with rounding to 1 or even 0 decimal places? Because that way we can make the fonts a little bigger, we'd give ourselves a little more space, and be easier to read. So then there's the ranking here over time on this. So this is a bump chart that we're doing to see them. And so it's every decade down at the bottom. So this says rank status over the years. I might say this is every 5 years or so on that. There's also something where this is a chart that's been placed over a background map, and I'm getting the map toolbar here, and it can be very easy for people as they're clicking around to do something like double click and zoom in the map, and then they might not know they can click the home button to go back. So that's something to turn off in your interactivity. Also on this, so this looks to be something that was built using map layers and kind of custom calcs. And fun thing to do, I wouldn't necessarily do that because it's making a bunch of extra work in your calculations and everything and building out your view. Since this map is really static, I just do the base map layer as a screen, as like a JPEG, and put it in the background, for example. And so as a fun thing to do, it's great, but as kind of a learning the tool and what we can do with the tool, but also thinking about, one of the things I'll think about if I'm building this for somebody else is this maintainable? And what kinds of crazy things am I doing in the view? Leaving versus incoming population. So I'm guessing this is like we added, okay, added 2438K, did this. So if I, so something for me on the tooltips, there's a lot of text on the tooltips And I'd see about abbreviating that and making the tooltips bigger is kind of something on this. And so here's a net of this, of how they ended up. So there's a little bit of this viz is kind of asking me to think about what the numbers mean. And it's a place of thinking about your audience. Maybe that's really useful for them to help and make them work a little harder to create more engagement in the visualization, or maybe not. You do have the highlight actions across here, which I really like. So you can kind of see where those were over time. And then there's this analysis down below. I might call this out as analysis or something just to have it be more meaningful. Also, the icons don't line up. Like the maple leaf icons are here, but then there's maple leaves over here. The map icons kind of line up. And then there's this person iconography in the background here, and then this person iconography over there. So it's not quite lining up for me. So that's a few minutes on that. And is it okay if I just answer those last two Q&A questions?
Yep, go for it.
Yep, okay. So Chris Gorzinski, hi Chris, says, thank you for the presentation. Having been around Tableau for so long, what keeps you excited about my work in Tableau and what am I excited about on the horizon? Well, I'm looking forward to our next presentation to find out some of the things that Tableau is building. So sometimes from talking with developers, I get to find out what Tableau's up to, but Tableau's got over 1,000 developers right now. They're building so much stuff. So there's a lot I don't know about. So the thing for me, as far as working with the tool, is there's so many people that I'm able to shave hours or days of work off of what they have to do through teaching them how to use the tool, or sometimes I'm building views and dashboards for them. And that having that impact in public health of giving somebody a few more hours in a day to do outreach, to do more, to get to a next level of analysis and so on is huge. So that kind of being able to have impact on people's lives is really big for me. As far as Tableau stuff on the horizon, I have a really big wish list, but I don't know how much Tableau is going to build on that. And then the second question is, great demo on relationships. Thank you. Using relationships to plot out time series charts on big data where latest block of time is missing, but it's hard to tell. So there is a new feature in 2020.4 for extending axes automatically. So you can work with that. And so Tableau is kind of densifying the data for you. So that's something to try out and see that if that works for you. If not, it's a really great use of relationships. And when you're working with relationships, you're getting that row level joins. You're getting maximum flexibility of what you can do with it in Tableau. So for example, when you're padding out that block of time, I barely touched the new extend axis feature, but I know with when you're doing stuff like that with relationships, it's super easy to like have a reference band that color codes that area, for example, and do that. All right. So thank you all for your time, and I'm gonna pass the baton over now.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I actually do have a quick question. So after you use 2020.4, have you realized that you use less LOD calculations?
With relationships in place, definitely. So there's actually the labor detail dashboard that I showed. There was this one level of detail expression that I needed to show like how many hours people are expected to work in total at a year level, which can change based on people coming and going because they're on maternity leave or paternity leave or going part-time or full-time or whatever. And with all the filters in play and everything, that LOD was just nightmarish to work out. So I built out a view that said, this is how many hours people are expected to work over the year, related that in, dropped it in my views, and it was less time to build that out than all the time I spent sort of tearing at my COVID hair, trying to get the LOD to work with all the filters and everything else that were in play. So, so definitely less. And then there is a feature Tableau announced at the Tableau conference this year of point and click LODs. So that's actually one I'm looking forward to make LODs just a little bit easier to build. So I don't have to deal with all the curly braces and everything.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to using 2020.4 ourselves, because whatever IT freeze, and then we were allowed to upgrade. So I'll just my hands. We can't wait to get my hands on that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. If your IT department is like, do we do 2020.3 because it's been out for a few months, or do we do 2020.4? Go for 2020.4 if you can. It's that's my advice, because it is it's a real bump up in functionality and what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you again, Jonathan. So next up we have Honto Ming. Again, he's a product manager at Tableau. So he's gonna give us some. He's gonna go over some of the new features in 2020.4, and as well as what's next in. He's gonna give us a quick peek or sneak peek at what's coming up next. So on to you, Hanto.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, James. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay, everybody should be able to see. So again, my name is Honto Ming. I'm product manager here in the augmented analytics team at Tableau. The augmented analytics team, in case you haven't seen or heard of us before, our mission is to leverage machine learning, AI, and other related technologies to help our Tableau users see and understand the data. You might have seen some more prominent features such as explain data or ask data. Augmented also covers predictive functions, which was launched in 20.3, data science integration, so PyTab, things like that, and my own portfolio, which is recommendations on server. Prior to Tableau, I was at a local company called Hootsuite. If you're local to the area, you probably have heard of them before if you're in the tech industry. There I launched their first machine learning platform that allowed developers there to train and deploy machine learning models into our product. And we released our first machine learning powered feature during my time at Hootsuite. So you could probably guess from my introduction, my area of interest is in machine learning. Today, I'm going to go over a demo of two of my favorite features that was released in 20.4. I think Jonathan touched on both of them. One is map layers, and the other is coincidentally the date extensions for especially useful for predictive functions. And I'm going to give you just a quick peek into what we have in store for augmented in 2021. So Tableau, when I've only been with Tableau for just over a year, and what really kind of blows my mind is just the pace of innovation that that goes on in Tableau. And what that means tangibly and concretely is just the number of new features that get released every quarter. And 20.4 is no different. However, you know, it is getting late in the day, and because this is a virtual tug and not the in-person tug where we can all bribe you with food and booze, I'm not going to keep you here for the next 3 hours to go over every single one of these. And I'm only going to go over two of my favorite, which I said before is map layers and data extensions. So we know there are many customers who use Tableau to understand their location data and see spatial patterns. Unfortunately, in the past, our capabilities were a bit lacking, and it caused people to use hacks like dual axes to do the version of layers. Over the years, we did make improvements like spatial joins. I think that was back in 18.2. The make point and make line functions in 19.3. And one of the key pieces of feedback was the limitation in adding layers to a map viz. Prior to 20.2, as Jonathan showed you, we were limited to a maximum of 2 layers by using the dual axis hack that Jonathan showed. So that's why we are super excited to release map layers in 20.4. With map layers, you're no longer limited to just the 2 layers in your maps, and you don't have to rely on, the dual axis hack. There's effectively no more limits on how many layers that can be added to any map viz, as long as each layer is its own data source, and each layer can be customized through a number of properties like visibility, selectability, as Jonathan showed, the ordering, and more. So I'm gonna do a quick demo of it. And this is going to be much more esoteric than the demo that that Jonathan showed. So right now I'm in a hurricane map. So the percentage of probability of hurricanes. And this being Florida, there's some interesting goings on down in that state. And down there, you know, I'm a good person in Florida, and I know there's hurricanes. And I want to make sure when there's a hurricane, I know where dog shelters are so I can go rescue puppies. And rescuing puppies being a very calorie heavy burning activity, I also want to know where the nearest, apparently these things called poblano stores that serve burritos are. Where are they near the dog shelters? So you see, right now I have a shapefile that shows the percentage of probability of hurricane winds. In my data source, I also connected a CSV file to tell me where all the puppy shelters are and where the poblano stores are near there. So I'm going to demo the map layers by first putting the layers for puppy shelters into my map. Okay. Okay. Just when I want to demo, Tableau decides to freeze on me. Give me a second here. The demo gods are not happy with me right now. Let's try that over now.
You didn't make the proper offering.
Yeah, that's right. There we go. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to okay, and this is still very slow. There we go. Okay, let's hope this will work this time. Oh, sorry, dragging the wrong thing. So what I'm going to do is I am going to see all the puppy shelters that are within this hurricane area. All right, so I'm going to use the geometry for the shapefile, and make sure it's going to be a left join so I don't lose any of the geometry in the hurricane file, in the hurricane shapefile. And I'm going to use that make point function I talked about that was released back in 19 to get the latitude and longitude, which is in the puppy shelters file. And I'm going to make this an intersect. So you see now I did the spatial join. I have where the shapefile from the hurricane map and all the puppy shelters in my puppy shelters file. All right, so now we have that. Let's see. Now I'm going to have to, in my puppy shelters, there's latitude and longitude. I'm also going to have to make the new calculation here called puppy shelters. And I'm going to use that same make point function. So now I can now use that puppy shelters to add on to this layer. So now you can see all of my puppy shelters that intersect with this the shapefiles are in here. Let's see what I want to do to highlight this. First of all, you see that Tableau has actually made 2 layers for me, the puppy shelters and this geometry, which is from the hurricane file. I'm just going to rename this to something that is a bit more understandable. And one of the things that you can do now with the zoom layer is I just want to focus on the areas with in Florida with the puppy shelters. So I click on I disable the add to zoom extent, and what it does is they automatically zoom to the area that has the puppy shelters instead of all of the hurricane. And I'm going to add the name of each puppy shelter. Nope, sorry, that's the wrong layer. So now I can see the when I go over the each puppy shelter, I can see the names. This is a very simple use of map layers, but let's do it even more so we can show more than one map layer. So now, as I said before, rescuing puppies is it's hard work. So I want to know which puppy shelters have poblano storage, which serves delicious burritos apparently, that are within a 5-mile radius of this. So going back to my data source, I have another connection here for poblano shelters, or sorry, poblano stores, and I'm going to do this join again. Okay, so I don't want to lose any of my puppy shelters, so I'm going to make this a left join. And I'm going to get my calculation again. I want, in my calculation, anywhere on my left side, so my puppy shelters, I want to make a buffer of like 5 miles around every point. This make point is each puppy shelter. And I want to make a buffer that is 5 miles around it. So that's why I use this buffer make point calculation here. I'm going to remove this first. So sorry. Let's try this again. Okay, I did something wrong there. Whoops. I am going to have to start this one more time. My apologies. I may have to remap. Nope, wrong workbook. Let's see if I can recover that. Come on, Tableau, don't fail me now. Aha. Let's try this one more time. Okay, all right, let's try this one more time. And this join, I'm gonna make this a left join, and this is gonna be a calculation. I want my 5-mile buffer. And I want this to be the exact points of my poblano locations. So here, I'll just show you this calculation. Again, make point is a longitude and latitude. And make that, and this is going to be a intersects. Okay. Now I have my map layers again. What I can do is, first of all, I'm going to need to create another calculated field to say for my poblano points. And now I can add this onto another layer. So now you see Tableau has created another poblano location. I need to disaggregate my geometries here. So I am going to Here's my unique ID. And let's see here. Okay, so now I wonder why. Probably didn't save some. Yeah, didn't save all of my work. I probably actually want to do this too, disable selection, so I can't select the different areas of the hurricane map, because I just want to see where my puppy shelters are and my poblano locations are. So now you see I do have poblano locations and the puppy shelters here. Actually, I don't. Let's just make sure I do everything here. Yeah, there you go. There's okay. So now it's quite confusing, right? Like they're all dots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my puppy shelters into, conveniently, I have some pre-done, pre-made shapes in the shapes, images in the shape of a puppy. I'm probably want to make this a bit bigger so I know where the puppy shelters are. Let's just use one of the Tableau's recommended sizes. And I also want to, with the map layers, I can also do the same with a different layer in my poblano locations. Use again the shapes. Conveniently, I have an image of a poblano pepper. And yeah, so now, oh, actually, let's make this a little bit bigger too. So now, in case of a hurricane, I know how to plan out where I can go maximize the rescuing of my puppies while also being fed with tasty, tasty burritos. So that's a, like I said, a more esoteric and probably more simple application of map layers than the demo Jonathan gave. But I encourage everybody who is able to use 20.4 even on their own outside of work to give it a try, because this is a big advancement and a big jump in the capabilities in our spatial analysis. So the other thing that, sorry, I'm just going to bring this up one more time. Okay, another one of my favorite features and improvements in 20.4 is actually building upon what we released in 20.3, which was predictive functions. In 20.4, we improved predictive functions based on customer feedback. And the first piece was extending the date range. And we also included 2 additional predictive models for use. Previously, when you do predictions over time using the predictive functions, it would only go as far as you have data for. But now in 20.4, you can extend predicted values beyond the timeframes in your data set. So let's hope that this demo works a little bit better. All right. Okay, let's see this in action. So the impetus behind predictive functions in 20.3 was a request from our users for more robust statistical features within Tableau. People want to use predictive functions without needing to use code like R or Python in external services, so that this really opens up using predictive functions to domain experts who drive the data analysis. Here you see what was possible in 20.3. We're visualizing sales over time in the black, and in the red line is a predictive model. This was here. Sorry. That is quite simply built here with the a Tableau native predictive model. This shows what's the 50th percentile using linear regression of the predicted sales based on 2 predictors. One is the order date and the month of the order date and the date chunk of the order date. And you might be wondering what is the difference between these 2. So for the, let's see, I always get this mixed up and I always have to double check to make sure. So the month portion, actually here, this portion of the calculation, this predictor, is really showing the month over month increase over time. That is the predictor. And then this date trunk part of it here is to be able to model the intra-year, so within year, the seasonality across different months. So I'll demo this by removing this, the month function, and apply it. As you can see that this date trunk, because we're literally looking at the month and the year here of the order date. So we can see that this predictor gives us the rise year over year of sales. If we remove this part of the calculation and just keep the month of it, you can see that this actually is the predictor for the cyclical nature of within a year, that sales go up at around October and November timeframe. So what another common use case for this predictive functions is really to create a confidence interval to see what your predicted values are. So conveniently, this workbook has already calculation. So instead of this uses the same model, but it says it uses the, I want to know what the 10th percentile is. So we drag this on here, and we can also drag 90th percentile. And you can, whoops, that is the wrong model. So you can see, now you can easily create a confidence interval or range of prediction. So you can easily like forecast your sales. But as you can see here, we only have data up to December 2020. So what if we want to extend our, predictions in the future? So that was one of the things that was lacking in 20.3, and we heard that loud and clear from our customers. So in 20.4, you can quickly and easily extend your date range by clicking on the pill and just saying, I want 6 months. And this immediately extends the date range here, even though you have no data. And you can also see the different, you can also see the predictive values into the future. Right, so another thing we wanted to show you was we have 2 additional models. I'm gonna remove this one here and this one here. This predictive model is based on, uses ordinary linear regression. So the other model we've used is regularized linear regression, which is an attempt to accommodate for overfitting. You can see it's not much different, but then we also introduced a Gaussian processes model. I'm not as familiar with the Gaussian processes model because my area of expertise isn't in probabilistic machine learning. But basically what Gaussian processes is it's a probabilistic model, predictive model that is non-parametric. So you can see with this new model, it actually fits the data a lot closer. And what you can do now with these 3 models is you can compare. And how you do that is create something like this. So what we did here was we based color on what we call the residuals, or how far away the prediction is away from the actual value. So the redder the color, the further away the predicted value is away from the actual truth value. So you can see and compare all 3 different models here, and you can see the Gaussian process is much more accurate, even though this doesn't necessarily mean it'll be a better model. It really depends on your data and your use case. And also you probably want to add a few more predictive features besides just the month into this predictive model here. And that's it. So thanks for taking your time out of your day to listen to me talk about Tableau. And if you have any questions about any of these features I talked about, or any other specific ones that I didn't talk about, I can try to answer your question, or at the very least, try to find the right person within Tableau to answer it in a future date. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. And I'll pass it back to, is James still on, or I guess who's running?
He's not. Yeah, okay. I'll be stepping in for him. Thanks so much, Hanto. Lots of great stuff and exciting things ahead. if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. We have a few minutes to go over those.
This is Jonathan. I can't actually type things in the Q&A. I'm going to jump in and ask verbally. The data signal looks super fascinating to me because that's a whole chunk of alerting and things that we do is just basic changes. Is that something that is only surfaced when the Tableau user logs in, or will it be able to be automatically pushed out to users and as like an email or some sort of notification?
We're looking at both of what you talked about. Definitely is going to be as part of the server experience. So once you don't have to log in and directly go to that view, but if you go to server home, there should be a way to surface it. And it depending on our timeframes and the resources available, we also do plan email digest and in the future, things like maybe in Slack or part of a mobile notification.
Great. Thank you. Let me just put in a little plug for, Delilah, could you turn that down? Yep. Put a little plug for talking with Tableau developers. Tableau hires freakishly friendly people. So they're just super great to listen to and learn about the tool. And they also love listening to us users and find out what we're interested in so they can make better software. So if these are areas you're interested in, please reach out to the folks that were mentioned, like Rachel and Ruhab and so on.
Yes, we're always looking for user feedback in one form or the other. And so, yes, would love to hear anybody who would even want to provide their input on some mock-ups, on some designs. We're always on the lookout for customers to talk to.
Cool. I'm not seeing any other questions coming through, but the session was recorded and we'll get that posted to the Tableau YouTube channel and share out with everyone that was able to join this call. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any one of the presenters or TUG leaders. We'll be happy to connect and answer those questions that you have. Again, last call for questions. Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, thank you, Honto and Jonathan, so much for your time and for presenting today. Super helpful stuff. And then thank you, attendees, for joining. Great to have you on this call. And with that being said, I'll close this out and we'll see you guys at the next user group meeting for Victoria and Vancouver.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.